Hey everyone, it's July. It is July 1st, 2026, and we are here, direct line. We are almost at America's biggest birthday party in 250 years, and we are glad to have our next county executive for Montgomery County, Esther Wells, as our guest. I am Dwight Tuff, filling in for Jackie Saxon, who is cruising the New Jersey rivers and byways. And Mark Onkefer is with us. So welcome to the show, Esther.
Well, Esther, we're really glad to have you, and we want to hear more about your candidacy for county executive.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Esther Wells, and I'm running to be your next county executive on November 3rd. Please learn more about me at voteforesther.com, or you can email me at voteforesther@gmail.com. And so my candidacy has been based on affordability and accountability. Right now, Montgomery County is in a financial crisis, and it will take a CPA like myself to help us to deliver results for residents and to be able to move us forward in the right direction. And I'm happy to share more about my platform as we continue our conversation.
Well, let's talk about what do you see as the crisis, the source of the problem in Montgomery County that needs to get addressed?
Yes, no, that's a great question. And so right now, the county executive, Mark Elbridge, is term limited. And so there will be a new face come December 1st. And in terms of the financial crisis, that is squarely fallen on our incumbents. So Montgomery County has been one-party rule for over 20 years. And that has led to measurable setbacks for a lot of our community members when it comes to the education gap, the home ownership gap, the wealth gap, the earnings gap, all the gaps that are measures of success. And last month, actually, the county council, they finalized the FY 2027 operating budget, where it is a record $7.9 billion. That's larger than some countries, that's larger than some states. And that is the budget revenues here in Montgomery County. So I don't believe we have a revenue problem. What I believe is that we have a leadership problem, and they are addicted to spending your hard-earned tax dollars. And as a CPA, I have already done a deep dive of our budget, and I have identified that there are laws currently on the books where our county has failed to go after the tax revenues that they're entitled to. This came out in a report just last week from the Office of Inspector General that said in short-term rentals, Montgomery County has not been enforcing its rules and is unable to capture that revenue stream. Also, we spend record millions of dollars working with our nonprofit sector, which they are our partners with government in meeting the needs of our community members. However, we have not staffed the grants and the contracts and procurement adequately, where, again, the Office of Inspector General reports have shown there has been some mismanagement of funds, and there has been procurement issues where things were not approved. And so I have identified almost 20% of our county's budget where we can find savings, where we are able to right this ship of this financial crisis to say, let's look inward and let's ensure that we turn over every stone to find the tax dollars for our residents and be better stewards of their money. Because we know that right now things are very hard. When we look at gas prices, we look at grocery prices, we have our homeowners insurance that's going up. Today is July 1st. And I don't know if you guys know, but as a homeowner in this county, our taxes have gone up $692 because of the income tax offset that was eliminated. And we can talk more about that, but essentially it was posed as temporary, but really it's permanent. And so for the indefinite future, right now, the way the budget is set up, that tax credit is not coming back, even though that's what has been communicated out of the county council. And so this financial crisis has been created by the incumbents. My opponent has led the efforts in increasing the budget each year, tax and spend. He has voted, it's public record, that he wanted our property taxes to go up even higher than what was being proposed and voted on our council. And so I am running on common sense, on affordability and accountability.
And I'm sure your message is resonating very well with the folks that voted for Andrew Friedson in the primary, who was echoing your same sentiments on low taxes, affordability, and hitting all the right notes.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It's so interesting you said that, because this election cycle leading up to the primary, I participated in over 40 forums. I believe the Democrats had in the 50s. And a lot of my answers, I was able to say, to be additive to what Councilmember Friedson said and be able to buy time to be able to say it more, right? And so I have found great alignment with what Councilmember Andrew Friedson responses were. Even as on the council, I provided public comments. Even as the president of the Taxpayers League, when I do testify at the council, I have praised Councilmember Friedson when it comes to being a fiscal steward, a good fiscal steward of our funds, to say, thank you for voting no to the property tax hike, because the county residents voted in our charter to say we need unanimous vote yes to raise our property tax rate. And it was because of the vote of Andrew Friedson that didn't allow that to happen at the county level. Now we have the county executive that then circumvented the wishes of the county resident and abused the state loophole where he was still able to get a property tax rate hike, but that was on record. And so I have found a great alignment with Councilmember Friedson. He has been the most fiscally council member currently. And so I do believe that a lot of supporters will find a home within my campaign.
Yeah, so Friedson voters, go to learn about Esther and support Esther. She's carrying the Friedson message forward.
That's right.
And in addition to taxes, Montgomery County also has a couple other challenges. One being infrastructure, two being education. As you, like me, a product of MCPS, I'm sure you remember when our schools were second to none in this state. And now, from what I understand, teachers are patting themselves on the back over a 5-year graduation rate, like we're Europe or something like that. What is your vision for education?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And as I mentioned, our county's operating budget for FY 2027 is $7.9 billion. And almost 50% of that budget goes to MCPS directly. Now, we then have to layer on all of the support services that the other county departments provide to MCPS, such as our police department provides the school community engagement officers and the security, the safety security guards as well. And so we have other departments that support MCPS with the psychologists, the social workers coming out of the Health and Human Services Department. And so MCPS requires a large portion of our budget, and rightfully so, right? Our children are our future. I have 2 children in MCPS. One is 8 and going into 3rd grade, and one is 13 going into the 8th grade. He has autism spectrum disorder and ADHD and has been with MCPS since he was 1.5 years. And so I am very grateful for MCPS and all the work they've done to help him to be as high functioning as he is. And I stayed here in Montgomery County to raise my family specifically because of the reputation of how favorable they've been to children that have autism. I grew up here. I came to this country in 1995 in search of the American dream. I went to MCPS schools. I graduated from Watkins Mill High School. And like you said, we were one of the best schools in the nation, in the state. And I then went on to University of Maryland. Go Terps. I went
another great school in the state of Maryland.
Exactly. And so I was well prepared when I got to the University of Maryland. I was able to rely on my notes from high school, the Academy of Finance. And so I know what MCPS is capable of doing. And so it is very unfortunate where we are right now, where, like you said, we are seeing a 5-year low of high school graduation rates for our children. We are seeing that our children in like the East County, where my opponent lives, the schools there, the students are have proficiency rates in math of 4% and 7%. How can we support students in schools that are underperforming? And my opponent currently is the chair of the Education and Culture Committee. This is his oversight. This is squarely falling to him, where he's been on the committee for 8 years. He's been the chair for 4 years. And we're still seeing our children, particularly our Black and brown children, that are being left behind, that are being having results that are lower than the average of the community. And so my goal with MCPS is to fund them at maintenance of effort. And that simply says, because MCPS is a state agency, it says that as county executive, you're required to fund students at the same level as you did in the prior year at minimum. And then I will say, okay, MCPS, Board of Education and Superintendent, I will fund you above maintenance of effort based on strategic plan. So they will say, for example, we need $10 million to provide high dosage tutoring in these schools that are underperforming or failing the students for X amount of years. And the measurable results will show student incomes, student outcomes of proficiency, graduation rates, math, literacy. There will be some measured outcome that will be determined and measurable in a certain period of time for those additional funds. But right now, we don't have such a mechanism. Right now, our county council continues to fund MCPS significantly above maintenance of effort without any requirements for improvements in outcomes of students. All they do is fund the contracts, they fund the inputs, and no one is taking a look to see how is this helping our students, because studies show it's not. Students' proficiencies are stagnant or declining, and our children still can't read by third grade, which we know that's truly the school to prison pipeline. It's not police officers in our children's school. It is illiteracy. And we know that even in prisons, a lot of the prisoners are illiterate. We know that a lot of negative outcomes start happening right after third grade when students start to disengage from their education. And so I'm going to be laser focused with MCPS because I have skin in the game. I have children in our school system, and I represent the families that are currently being left behind and are underperforming, whether it's the special ed community. I represent that community with my child. Whether it's the Black and Brown community, I represent that community with my child. Whether it's the immigrant community, I represent that as an immigrant coming here to live the American dream. So there's so many things of my identities that I believe in lived experience, working with MCPS, being an advocate, being the president of Taxpayers League, that this is going to be a main focus of ours. Our schools are going to be back top in the nation, top in the state.
You have some interesting ideas about how to, in effect, have a negotiation with MCPS. I mean, part of the challenge, isn't it, is that every year the school system comes up with its dream budget, which usually involves a substantial level of increases.
Right.
And then it goes to the council, and in most recent years, the county executive will talk about tax increases to fund that. But from that point on, which is really the conversation is in effect, how big should the increase be? Any reduction ends up getting framed as though it's a cut in education, which is not really what's going on. It's a conversation between a small increase to a large increase. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that you want to kind of flip the script, if you will, in that whole process, to have a negotiation with MCPS about what they'll do to warrant an increase beyond maintenance of effort. Is that about right, or how would you characterize that?
Yes, and I'll definitely add to what you said. So just as a background for our listeners, MCPS is a state agency. And so the county council is the funding partner, and all they are, majority of their responsibilities to ensure that we adequately fund our school system. But MCPS also have Board of Education members, which is duly elected by you. They were on your ballot on June 23rd, and they will be again on your ballot November 3rd. And so my responsibility will be to work with the Board of Education members, which have direct oversight of your one employee, which is the superintendent. And so the cycle goes, the superintendent will propose his operating budget in December. That goes to the Board of Education members, which they will finalize or tentatively adopt in February, March. And then by March 15th, that budget will come to me as county executive. And then I will add that on to the rest of the departments in the counties and deliver that over to the county council. And then they must finalize it by June, because we know July 1st is the start. And so just to give you that background. And so what I am proposing is I am saying that within MCPS and the Board of Education and superintendents, they need to ensure that they are doing the hard work prior to bringing that budget to me. A lot of our checks and balance is broken right now, and it's failing because our elected officials and our appointed officials are not saying no to themselves. In our own personal finances, we say no to ourselves often because we know we have finite funds. Right. And so what I would also require of our schools is, yes, we want to know what your needs are, because as superintendent, that is your job, is to ensure you propose what your needs are. But then you also need to provide a budget that reflects what we can afford. And that's what I testified and said in April, May, when we had testimonies to say, we are no longer in a position to say what our priorities are. We are in a position to say, what can we afford? What can taxpayers afford? And then we need to work within that, because we cannot continue the endless cycle of tax and spend. And so that's what I would require of the superintendent and the Board of Education, is provide me a budget that is zero-based budgeting. Right now, the budgets each year, it's incremental. So you have some massive base budget, and then each year they ask for a little bit more and a little bit more. And that uses the analogy of, if you have a frog in water, if you turn up the temperature a little bit more every time, the frog will not feel it until a long time, and then eventually it'll jump out. But What I am saying is we need to ensure that we go back to the base budget to see, are the programs that we funded, are the staffing levels that we have conducive to what we can afford today. Personal income growth of county residents this year was 1%. Cost of living adjustments for our Social Security and our seniors in our community, that was 2.8%. That represents the range in where we should provide wage adjustments for staff and county employees. That's not what happened. What was proposed to us as a county was almost a 8 and 9% wage and step increase of employees within our government. That is significantly above what we can afford, and that's where everything came to head this year, where we had a lot of push and pull between the county executive and ultimately the county council. And so I will not allow things like that to happen. We all need to temper these requests to ensure that we are not leaving the taxpayers to hold the bag, because ultimately the failure was that the county executive failed to grow the economy. The county executive failed to attract and retain high income earners. The county executive failed to allow business owners to come here, to entrepreneurs to start business here and to thrive. Because if we did that, we would have the revenue to be able to reward our hardworking government employees in the county and in our schools to have above market increase. But the fact is our county executive continues to fail us, and then he keeps coming to the same pool of taxpayers and saying we need more money. That needs to stop, and that's why I'm running, is to ensure that we right-size a lot of things in this county and that we're still able to meet our needs, attract and retain high-income earners, attract new headquarters and warehouses, and be able to grow the economy so that we can bring down taxes.
Let's talk about... Go ahead, Dwight, sorry.
Yeah, I had one last thing about education. One of the things Will Jawando has been ballyhooing is about the whole funding for construction of new schools, where it seems a little lopsided. It seems like most of the construction happening in East County, opposed to, and they're letting Wooten High School fall apart and moving all the kids to Crown, opposed to fixing Wooten, frankly. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so ironic. So just taking a step back, the background with that. So the income tax offset credit, that elimination generated about $140 million of new tax revenue, which was meant to fix, to your point, our aging infrastructure of schools at MCPS portion of it, and to pay for our progressive income tax structure that was new. But a good portion of it is to help remediate the mold that we have in our schools. I took a tour of Wooten High School, part of one of our candidate forums, and I saw the mold. I would not want my child to go to that school. I saw where the ceilings were open, where you could see the mold, you could see the moisture, you could see the buckets that they put around the school strategically to capture all the water. I mean, it really is not conducive to needs of children to learn and staff to teach. And so the county council said, okay, we are going to eliminate the ITALC 1 year so we can help remediate the mold and we can have the HVAC system. We saw near the end of the school year where some of our high schools were closing early because it was so hot and the HVACs didn't work and it was not safe for our children to be in school. We are in Montgomery County, one of the most affluent places in the county, in the state, in the country. And our children's education is being interrupted and disrupted for basic safety and working HVAC systems. That's not right. So the county council said, okay, this is what we're going to do. But then my opponent, Will Jawando, he decided that no, we do not need to prioritize these capital expenditures. We need to put that money into the operating budget. These one-time funds, we're going to put it into the operating budget to fund a lot of the salary, the union contracts that really is tentative, not even permanent, and they have the provisions to be able to go back and renegotiate, but they didn't want to do that. And so to me, we know our schools are failing. We saw, I believe it was Magruder High School during the spring play, the ceiling collapsed with an audience. I mean, how embarrassing, right? The taxpayers are sitting here watching their children's hard work come together and the ceiling is collapsing on itself. Or we're seeing pipes fail and water damage all over. And so my opponent prioritized one-time funds for ongoing expenditures and took money away from MCPS being able to do capital improvement projects. And even worse is when we local taxpayers make investments in our capital, like our HVAC system in our schools, the state has a grant where they provide additional funds where we are able to do more with less of our tax dollars. And so by taking that money away from the capital project and moving into the ongoing expenditures, we forfeited $16 million of state grant money because Will Jawando made a motion and it passed to take that money away again from fixing our children's school. That is fiscally undisciplined. And again, one-time funds for ongoing expenditures, that's incompetence. And so that is why I'm running as a CPA, Master's in Taxation, where when I saw that happening live, I said, oh my goodness, we cannot allow him to fail forward into the county executive race. I'm so glad that I decided to run for county executive.
So let's come and talk. You talked about growing the economy, and that is, as you mentioned, has been one of the failures of the county. We've seen a decrease in the population. It's actually been pretty flat for the last couple of years. Some years have been down. But more importantly, we've seen an exodus of a large number of businesses. Talk about why that's taking place and what you can do to address that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that will have to be part of my first budget as the next county executive. Is first, we're going to look inward and we're going to find efficiencies. We also have the Economic and Development Committee within the county council. And again, I watch all of their business meetings and committee meetings, and business leaders have told us why they will not come here. And yet still our leaders have not remediated the things that they said they need in order to give us a second look. I will be the county executive to go back to them and say, we have remediated our permitting process, for example. It takes too long to get permits in this county so we can have more jobs and we can build more housing, which we know right now we need more of. I will ensure that I'm not just going to hire someone to be the director of permitting, but I'm going to innovate that process, right? And so we also need to hold government accountable. And so we know in DC, for example, they have a good blueprint for us where you can have expediting permitting, where it could be same day or next day or a couple of days, not months later. Currently, I am the president, chairman, trustee of the board of my church, and we've been trying to have an outdoor digital sign for over a year. And we are working with Rockville Sign, and all they keep telling us is the status update is we're waiting for 5 of the 10 permits we need. We're waiting for 4. I mean, it's just ridiculous how long it takes to get permitting in this county. So that is one way for us to be able to help small businesses, which when they sign up for a lease, they have to pay for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. And if they're delayed in just opening, that's a lot of money that is being wasted that they could have used. And so that's one area, it's permitting. Another way is to ensure I take a holistic view. Again, if we want to attract headquarters and high paying jobs, they will want to start families here or bring their families here. That gets back to what we were just talking about. Our school system needs to be best in class. We need to ensure that we also have adequate housing. We need to also ensure that we offer, our recs department. We have our park and planning. We have a lot of different people that touch areas of our family that we need to take a holistic view. Our roads, transportation, people need to get to work, right? Whether you're working across the bridge in Virginia or you're working in our community, we need to ensure that in Up County where I'm located, and I'm a commuter, I work in DC at the Wharf, MARC train is a great option for me, but however, I cannot use it because my child's school bus comes after the last train comes. And so then I have to go to the Red Line Metro, which right now we know starting July 6th, Metro is shut down. And so I don't even have a real way to get to work unless I decide to take I drive to the Metro station, then I take the Metro, then I take the bus, then I connect to the Metro, then I take an Uber because I have to walk. I mean, that is obscene. That's like 2 hours of my day for me to be out and just en route, right? And so I would recommend 2-way MARC train all day and including weekend service. I would ensure that we realign partnership with MARC and Metro, that if transfers are needed for exactly what we're seeing this summer, that we can have that happen. I will work with WMATA to be able to extend the red line higher up, 355. Why does the red line stop at Shady Grove? We have residents in Germantown and Clarksburg and Boyd's and Poolswood that would love to have Metro. We need to be able to extend it further up. Again, we need to have transportation infrastructure. Government exists for public safety, for our education and infrastructure. And on all fronts, our incumbents and our leaders are failing us.
So you're talking about transportation. What are your thoughts about 270 and the Belt? Well, specifically along the Beltway, the American Legion Bridge.
Yes, I believe that we need to expand 270. Again, when I started, after I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park in 2005, I worked in public accounting right there in Tysons. And that commute was horrible. I mean, thankfully I was single, and so I didn't have responsibilities at home. And so I left for work at like 5, 6 a.m. just to beat traffic and spare myself of the insanity that is after, during rush hour. And I'm sure it's gotten worse by now with more people moving further out, down up Frederick and Hagerstown. Again, it's so unaffordable to live here in Montgomery County that people are just being pushed out, whether it's constructive foreclosure or it's, eviction. People are just moving further out and having longer commutes. And so we need to recognize that, and we need to work with all of the partners that are needed, that are responsible and have the authority to be able to offer that, because it is important that we improve our transportation. Commuters is a big tax base for us. And I think it's unfortunate that a lot of changes that has been made is to frustrate them, whether it's you're creating a bike lane and you're taking away a lane, or you are doing road diets. There's so much that's being done that is, we are having dedicated bus lanes all day. There's so much that's being done to just tell commuters that you're not welcomed here. When we bring our tax dollars back here, we have the reciprocity between the tri-state. And so I think it's important that we revisit what commuters need, and we ensure that we help them get to work quickly and get back home to their families, because that's what's truly important.
And the saddest thing is that Montgomery County seems to want to prioritize the 1%. I think it's even less than 1% of the population that bikes to work.
Right.
Like former, thank God, Councilman
Right.
Hans Remer, who was the biggest proponent of bikes and bike lanes. You know, he enjoyed riding his bike to work and so on. You know, also, can we afford to have ride-on be free? You know, the buses are empty. They were empty when they were charging. They're empty still when they're free. What was it's like the county, I don't know, we're losing money on ride-on because we were losing money before. Now we're even losing more because we're not even charging anything for the ride-on buses.
Yeah, sorry, repeat that last part. I may have.
I was saying ride-on buses in Montgomery County are all free.
Right.
We were losing money when we were charging, I think, $1 or $1.25 for it, and now we're losing even more money for the fleet of electric buses that are catching on fire.
Right. No, that is such a great question. And just as a background, both of my parents and my brother, they drive ride-on buses. My parents, when we moved to this country, a year after, they found a great career with ride-on. And so I am so grateful for the opportunities government has provided to immigrants to be able to have a career here. And I grew up hearing the stories about ride-on. And I will tell you lately, the stories of what they have experienced on these buses, now that the buses are free, are like night and day. Right. We're seeing a lot more attacks of our drivers. We're seeing a lot more mental health needs of our riders. We're seeing a lot more safety concerns of our drivers now that we have free buses. I firmly believe that when people value something, that, you know, paying for it is important. The genesis of the free buses mainly was because Ride-On needed a new fare box system on all of the buses, and the council members said it cost more to replace the fare boxes than it did for the fare. I don't understand how they did that math, because the fare box.
Only a politician can come up with that answer.
Right.
Right.
And so it's like whatever it takes to get what you want, right? And so I believe that I would want to revisit that, but not before doing a study. Because what we have identified and what I see firsthand is when these buses are riding around, they're empty. They're virtually empty a lot of times of the day. And so the current transportation system map, I believe, still exists from pre-COVID needs. And so what I would first want to look to is doing a study, or at least having access to the data to say, what is the ridership on these buses throughout the day on all of the colors, all of the lines? And where there's low ridership, ensure that it is being marketed appropriately, that people know that these bus lines are available, to ensure it's not a marketing problem and not a demand problem. And if it truly is that supply and demand doesn't align, then it's time to pivot. And so we know up here in Up County, in Damascus and Poolsville, they don't have weekend services of buses, right? And so Montgomery County has tried to offer flex buses and buses to get you to the closest transit in Germantown. That's not effective. That's not appropriate, right? Our senior citizens need to get to their medical appointment. Community members need to get to their houses of worship, need to get to work on weekends. They need to have access to the transportation system that they pay for. Again, they don't have metro. Now they don't have buses. I mean, they're being treated like stepchildren. That's not appropriate. That will end on my watch. Again, electing someone from Up County is critically important, because I understand our needs better than someone from East County, where they have a lot more of the funding, a lot more representation on the council, and they've been able to have a lot more of the projects taken care of and prioritized. And so what I would recommend before looking to add a fee to Ride-On is to first, again, do that hard work. Find the data, make sure decisions are data driven to ensure our current day needs of our infrastructure we're meeting that based on where the buses are being located. And once we're able to do that deep dive, then if ultimately the numbers need to make sense, then we can then involve community members, understand, you know, what will it take? Should we bring back the fee? I do think that paying even $1 kept away a lot of harm and unsafe behavior on the buses. If people know they can ride the bus all day for free and go absolutely nowhere and just terrorize other community members, that's not appropriate, right? Right now, I do not feel safe to take my children onto the bus and to get out of my comfort car, even if it's for $1. And so a lot of it, the barrier is not the cost. The barrier is it safe to ride the bus? How long would it take me to get to where I'm going? And up county, if you're trying to go down county, it's like 3 different connections, right? I don't have time to be able to take the bus, to go to work, to pick up my child from daycare, pick up my child from school, take them to school activities, go to the grocery. Like, we don't have time for that. And so a lot of times up county, it's the convenience of our cars. It's what's keeping us in our cars. And so if we want to incentivize a lot of community members to get out of their cars, I don't believe it's the $1 that's keeping us back, right? Like we are an affluent county. It's not just the money. It is it meeting the needs that I have? And that is suffering because, again, we don't have a fee for the bus system that would help generate the revenue.
It's interesting because you made a point when you were talking about your own experience about using Uber or Lyft in order when you really need to be someplace at a particular time. Right. It's the alternative to public transportation. And I think sometimes we miss the fact that in the real world, there are times when you use that and there are times when you use public transportation. I would also observe, too, it's interesting that Wamana was not happy with the free fare with ride-on buses because of the confusion it created, because they have an expectation that they're going to be able to recap a substantial part of their operating expenses from the revenues they get from fares. But let's talk, this is kind of a good segue, I think, into housing, which is one of the issues that has really been driving this race. And it's interesting, Montgomery County is a very expensive place to live. And for some people, that's a good thing. And for some people, that's a bad thing. And it does seem that sometimes our politicians speak out of both sides of their mouth, and they don't want to build things, but on the other hand, they want to have more affordable housing. How do you strike the right balance in our development policy?
Yeah, and I think it will need to be community centered. And so I have done a lot of candidate forums this season, and that question has come up time and time again. And my response is different from my opponent's response. And so I think for voters that are looking at housing as one of their issues, our responses are like night and day. And so what I have proposed is to ensure that we can build high density housing along our metro corridors, right? We know that if you're within, let's say, a mile of a metro station, you're less likely to need a car, exactly like we were saying. You wouldn't need an Uber or a bus. You're less likely to need a motor vehicle. And so therefore, high density makes sense along those corridors. And that's been currently the plan. What I don't agree with is that we reimagine the word single family housing, and which is currently what's being done, to say, well, you can build a single family home in any community and call it, well, you can build a high density home, multifamily, duplex, triplex, quadplex in a single family community, which changes the entire character of the community, which creates a lot of issues, I would say, because the infrastructure is not set up for it, right? So a lot of times in single family communities, you will have your driveway and then you may have a few off-street parking. Well, if you build a high density, 400 apartment unit where maybe 2 of the adults in each unit has a vehicle, where are they going to park that? They wouldn't have space to park it. What I have seen even at times on days where some of my neighbors have had large gatherings is my son, his special needs bus cannot navigate all of the vehicles that are there to be able to pick him up. And I've had to walk to the beginning of my community just for him to have access to his education because there's just too many vehicles in the way, right? So things like that, we have to consider that first we need to have the infrastructure to accommodate if we're going to be even thinking about putting high density apartment buildings in single family communities, because right now it's not set up for that. But I do believe that we want to have housing for everyone in their walk of life. And so one of the things we need to do is start to attract young people like myself or even younger, where they just graduated from college, they would have some student loans, but they don't have a family yet, but they plan on having a family, starting a family. They have a good paying job and they are looking to grow. Well, initially, they will need a certain type of housing. Right now, we do not have those market rates housing. They can afford it. It's just we do not have it. So we would need to build more of those market-based housing, but smaller because, again, they need to grow. And then also we have our senior citizens, which is the fastest growing community in Montgomery County, where they would like to downsize, but the cost of the downsized home is far greater than the cost of the big, single family home that they be living in right now, and they don't need that space. But a family that's growing will need that space, but that single empty nester can't leave because financially it's just not doable here in the county. So we really need to look at ways that our senior citizens can grow in place. And again, looking at the property taxes and how that's negatively impacting them on their fixed income, but then also ensuring that we have a place for our young families or our young adults that want to live here, for our families that are growing, our couples, our children. And so I think everyone needs to have feel like they have a place here, and it needs to be affordable.
You made a great point earlier on about permitting and just how difficult that is in Montgomery County. And that's one that certainly the government, I mean, it's under the control of the county executive. What is going on with that department?
Right. Yeah, no, I think permitting, we've a year or two ago, we have a new permit director, and they have just never recovered. Some of the complaints I'm hearing is that a lot of the employees or the people that are needed for some of the permits, they're still working remotely. People would go into their headquarter building and no one's there to really help them, or they're kind of just giving a runaround. And there's a myriad of things that are happening there with permitting. And ultimately, what I believe is preventing developers and other businesses to move here is because they need predictability. They need stability of government. They need to know that, if they put in an application for a permit, that in X amount of time, they will have an answer, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. They need an answer because they're borrowing a lot of money, or they have different stuff that they need to do. And so one of the things that I'm proposing is for the county to be very clear on, we need more of this type of housing. So therefore, we will have pre-approved permitting for X specs. And so if your specs are in line with what we have said is pre-approved, your permit will take hours, right, or a day. Or if you have different types of needs, then unless you hear from us, it is approved. So then that puts it on us to ensure that we timely get to your application. I think other things that we can do, again, within permitting is to ensure that we look at all of the permits that are needed. Sometimes what we're seeing is the permits that are in place are for prior state legislation or prior federal legislation that now is in place, and now it's just a redundancy and it's just a revenue raiser. It's not a safety issue. So we need to go back and look at the amount of permits we have and see if any consolidation can be done and some streamline that can be done. And then also to be able to have that data dashboard online where people can track their permits online and see where is it in the queue, right? How much further out are we? Or is it my number? Is there a question you have for me? Who's my contact? Who's working on it? Who can I reach out to? So a lot of that, we need more transparency. We need more oversight. We need more accountability of our government. And that's the type of private sector experience that is currently happening in the private sector that I want to bring into our government, because right now they are not even close into the century of what we can do and is happening in the private sector that will really bring down costs, will make it cheaper and faster to be able to get permits here, and again, to be able to show that Montgomery County is open for business.
Yeah. And I tell you, permitting is a big issue. I had a driveway put in about 8 years ago now. It took me about 3 months almost to get the permit. And all we were doing was taking out the old driveway and putting in a new driveway.
Right.
That's all it was. And I think you've got a great vision of reforming the permitting office. I think you're a great candidate. I think we're at coming to the tail end. But let me throw out one last thing about law enforcement. I know your opponent has been very vocal on defunding the police and so on. And I know you do a great job, fully funding our police, keeping the SROs where they're needed. And
so that's a great topic. And again, voters, on November 3rd, you have a clear choice of the candidates that your values, vote your values, vote people over politics, because we are like night and day when it comes to candidates. And so my stance when it comes to public safety, again, government exists for public safety, public education, and infrastructure. And that is the order that I'm going to be creating my budget, right? And then everything else will fall in line. And so we need to ensure that we fully fund our police department, that it's fully staffed. We need to ensure that our police chief is well aware of our needs and that he is the expert. And so one thing about government that I think that I will bring to the table is I will hire the best and then I will get out of their way. I do not know everything because I become county executive. It is not my job to be able to tell everyone what to do. I'm not in public safety, but I will hire an expert that is in public safety has had a long successful career, and then I will let him know what my community, what constituents need, and then I will give him the resources he needs. I will not handcuff him. I will not create barriers that unnecessarily. And so fully staffing our police department, ensuring they have what they need. Also looking at the regulations, currently there's some bills being proposed that I think is unnecessary when it comes to hiring of our men and women. I think we do a great job of doing background checks on them to ensure that they're fair to our community members. If ever there is anything that we deem to be inappropriate conduct, absolutely hold everyone accountable. But I don't want to paint with a broad brush because I believe by and large, our police officers sign up to put their life down every day. They leave their families, not knowing if they're going to come back every day because they want to help us enjoy our community. And so I believe that in our schools, we have had record gun possessions this school year that just ended. We have seen our first 3 school shootings at our schools this year. And so we need to bring our school resource officers back into our schools, not for discipline, but it's to ensure when in times of crisis, every second counts, and our officers need to be in our high schools, in our schools, ensuring that we restore, we neutralize any threat to our children, because I want my children to come home every day, and I certainly want your children to come home every day in one piece. And so that is what I'm proposing. We need to ensure that we get back to proactive policing in our communities. We're seeing a lot of drugs, fentanyl coming into our community. Our children are overdosing in our schools. They're getting access to these drugs that one pill can kill. I know back in the day, you would see kids would probably, play around with drugs a little bit. It didn't kill you. But these drugs these days are hardcore and they are killing our children. They're overdosing on it. And so I will ensure we get the guns out of our streets, out of our community, out of the hands of our children. And that will require proactive policing. That will require our police officers, again, having the tools they need to do the work that they need to do to keep our community safe. And so I believe that our police officers are here to serve, here to protect. And again, if there's any issues or concerns, please elevate them to the right level. Ensure that you have your day in court, protect your rights. But I do think that police officers are important, and I will fully fund them in my budgets.
Well, tell us, as we're coming towards the end of the interview, how can people get in touch? You were talking in the very beginning, and I think now there we go. How do they get in touch with you, and what events do you have that are coming up in the near future?
Yes, no, thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you again for everyone that's listening. You can reach out to me at voteforesther.com, or you can email me at voteforesther@gmail.com. I'm happy to provide you with my personal cell number so we can have conversations over the phone. We can have a Zoom call. We can meet in person, have some coffee. On Friday, we have the 4th of July parade. I am in Up County, and so I will be in the Montgomery Village parade. I hope you can come out. It's a community day. It'll be a hot day, but it'll be a great time. I really look forward to celebrating America 250. There's also other parades in the community. We have the Damascus parade coming up. We have Poolsville Day. We have Germantown. We have festivals, Oktoberfest there in Gaithersburg. There's also Potomac Day. I mean, I'll be all over the county. I'm at large, and so I look forward to coming out to see you. If there's any events you're aware of, please reach out to me, let me know. I will make myself available. I am all about, a government that is for the people, of the people, by the people. I am a private citizen. I'm a certified public accountant, and I am running because I want to use my expertise, and I want to help ensure that for the next 4 years, that we really undo what has happened in the last 8 years, because we are in a financial crisis. And in your homes, when you have a need for a plumber, you wouldn't call an electrician. So therefore, in a financial crisis, you need a CPA on your side, delivering results and really helping your family move forward in the right direction.
And Dwight, what do we have coming up?
Tomorrow night, we have a special America 250 where we got some more fabulous candidates coming and telling us their American dream story. And if you guys want to see Esther in person, Esther is also going to be joining us, telling us her American dream story about coming to America. And we've got a number of other candidates who are going to share their experiences. Some are Generation 2, Generation 3 away from immigration, but they still remember the stories being told about coming to America and legally coming to America. So the fun starts at 6:30 over at the Mama Lucia's in Olney. We look forward to seeing everyone there tomorrow. And but Mark, we got a very special closing tonight. We're going to play Ray Charles's "America" as we leave.
Okay.
I still have the licenses for it going.
See, we do things legally. I want the record to reflect there.
Yep. So, and once again, everyone, vote Esther Wells. Vote for Esther.com, and welcome Andrew Friedson supporters to the Wells campaign.
Thank you for your support. I've heard a lot from them, and I really appreciate everyone rallying around me. It feels great.
Awesome. Good night, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. See everyone tomorrow comes out. Bye.
Beautiful, for heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. Success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing something like this. Listen.